Home sellers, today we're going to ask ChatGPT-4 about compensation for buyer's agents, particularly in California law, where I'm a licensed attorney and real estate broker. I was on my way to the gym and I got asked some questions about what a home seller should do when going in to a listing agreement, or the listing agent coming to their house and the listing agent asking them to offer compensation to buyer's agents via the MLS, because they can still do it for a few months. And also, we might as well look into this going forward, because soon it will not be allowed on the MLS, but there will be people trying to find ways to offer compensation to buyer's agents, broadcasting it on maybe Realtor.com or Zillow or even the agent's own sites. I want to find out what ChatGPT-4 thinks about this practice, and then I'll discuss what I think. And in other videos, I'll talk about the right way, I think, to offer compensation for buyer's agents. I would never, ever consider broadcasting compensation for buyer's agents unless I knew ahead of time that I was going to request that the buyer has an attorney and writes disclosures and maybe even waivers. But that's going to be for a separate video. Maybe I'll make it part of this series, but this is how we're going to start right now. So, are you aware of the fact NAR, the class action attorneys in the NAR class action suit filed a settlement agreement with the court recently? Maybe it'll give you the date. Today happens to be, oh, you can't see that, can you? Look, it's right in the way. 4/20/24. Okay, so the news was, I think, on Friday that the attorneys actually went ahead and did it. Now, with respect to that settlement, may sellers broadcast blanket offers of compensation on the MLS? Enter. Sorry, I didn't press enter. Okay, so this is part of a broader shift towards more transparency and fairness. This means that existing practice of blankets offers to MSA will have to cease, and the system will need to be updated to comply with the new rules. That's realestatenews.com. If you're currently using MLS to broadcast such offers, you will need to review and adjust your practices according to the new guidelines. Can sellers or realtors ethically broadcast offers of compensation to buyer's agents on other websites? Offers of compensation on websites or in other ways, or should the sellers consider every offer and request for compensation as they come in for offers or even by request one potential buyer at a time? I spelled time wrong, sorry. Instead, compensation for buyer's agents will need to be negotiated directly. which could occur either as seller concession or through negotiations with the buyer's agent. Ethical standpoint. It's important to consider transparent. So there's going to be a lot of written disclosures on both sides, case by set. Alternative platforms. Here's a big question. While MLS can no longer be used to communicate compensation offers, sellers and realtors might consider using their websites or other forms of direct communication to discuss compensation matters. However, these communications should still adhere to the new rules established by the settlement and should not replicate MLS models of blanket offers. That's a pretty strong statement. Instead, they should facilitate direct negotiations and transparency in a case-by-case basis. In summary, the shift away from MLS compensation broadcasts requires sellers and realtors to adopt more direct and case-specific negotiation practices. These changes aim to enhance fairness. Okay, so may an agent ask a seller to make an offer of compensation on a listing agreement? Or should the seller and realtor agree they will consider buyer compensation on a case-by-case agreement, a case-by-case situation? Or maybe I should say it, buyer on a, well, whatever, I'll just use it as it was. An agent may still ask a seller to include an offer of compensation in the listing agreement, but this must be done with a clear understanding of the rules. The compensation must not be communicated through anyone else's blanket, case by case. Well, okay, so I don't think anyone really knows. So I'm not going to argue or try to change ChatGPT on this, but I will say the seller in me says, if you're not going to broadcast it, it does absolutely no good as you, the seller, to write down a blanket offer of compensation. I don't see how it does you any good as a seller. If I were doing it, I would never do it. If I was selling my home working with agents, which I did before I became a real estate broker, I would never write it down. That's just evidence that could be used against you by a buyer and a buyer's attorney in the future. Let's say a buyer, there was a defect with the property, they had to spend a lot of money to repair it, or they just feel like they overpaid and they're disgruntled and they think there's problems with the property. In the past, they probably would have had to pay cash to a real estate attorney to have them go after a seller for these circumstances, for these situations, because it was very difficult, unless the fraud was apparent in the disclosures, just really clear. But now, if a seller has written down compensation to a buyer's agent on a listing agreement, and during discovery, the buyers, or, well, I don't know that discovery happens right away, but it's a risk. And a buyer's attorney, if they're seeing a broadcast and finds out that there was a listing agreement with compensation on it, I just don't see the point. It just makes the case that the seller also agreed to compensate a broadcast compensation if that came out. Now, could you explain what the can you explain why the DOJ is trying to decouple buyer agent compensation and seller compensation and seller agent compensation, and why it would be wrong for an agent to request and negotiate the buyer agent compensation during the listing process. Compensation during the listing process, during the listing meeting, and then requesting the seller to agree to a level of compensation during the listing meeting / consult. So these are true in competition, increasing transparent, aligning interests, requesting and negotiating buyer agent compensation during the listing consultation can create a conflict of interest. Market distortion. Right, that's exactly. Is conflict of interest and market distortion not exactly what NAR and the large brokerage just lost these big class that just lost? Is conflict of interest and market distortion exactly why NAR and large real estate companies just got sued? This is terrible. Sued for in class action suits. Okay, so in conflict of interest and market distortion, exactly why NAR and large real estate companies just lost these big class action suit on this. Yes. Okay, so, I mean, you're welcome to read all this. And was it not a violation of antitrust laws for listing agents to negotiate the buyer's agent compensation? Okay, so first of all, therefore, listing agents probably shouldn't be doing this. I frankly don't see it. Just because there's a class action suit on the federal basis. So let's see, price fixing barrier. Now, let's see. This is a very tough question now. So these are all the reasons. Now, if the class action suits on the above matter are settled, does that mean similar suits could not go forward? This is a tough legal question in state courts, particularly if buyers representatives, if suits were filed on behalf of buyers instead of sellers, or vice versa. Yeah. So, first of all, let me say ChatGPT is doing a very good job of this. Thank you. You did a great job. I may consider one or two follow-up questions. So the thing that I think I really am concerned about is sellers. Let's see if we can flesh that. So, in light of these class action settlements and the changes NAR will be making in MLS systems with respect to buyer agent compensation and DOJ's position and the DOJ's view of steering and on page 8 of the no select case and on page and the idea that offering percentage compensation to buyers agents may induce the agent to have the buyer pay more. Is there a risk to sellers if they offer blanket, if they create blanket offers of compensation to buyers agents instead of negotiating compensation on a offer by offer basis? I think yeah. Okay, so I think we're good now. This is the basis of why the attorney in me in California would approach this in this way. This is just my advice. I would say you can sum it up like this. To protect yourself until these state action lawsuits get settled and until we know the whole landscape, it is wrong for a listing agent to go in and counsel a seller into making blanket offers of compensation on the MLS. I think it's wrong for them to even ask a seller to write in and offer compensation on. Okay, let me take it back. I'm gonna make a next video. I'm gonna flesh this out point by point directly, and I'm gonna try to forecast the risk. Like, obviously, making a blanket offer compensation is far riskier than offering a percentage compensation after a request is done so along with a written offer. So I'm going to make a list, in my opinion, of the smart way a seller can make offers of compensation to buyers agents and sell their home, because I know sometimes it's very important. So we're going to go over that in the next video. This is going to be the foundation of a series. Since I use ChatGPT, we're probably going to be calling this something like the future of real estate. Thanks. My name's John McConnin. I'm a real estate attorney and a broker. We're going to be doing things the right way at my brokerage. We changed the name to comply with what we think DLJ is asking at flatfeeadvantage.com. Flatfeeadvantage.com. Thank you. You'll also be able to go there probably for this new series, either there or Winner's Check. But we're going to make a new video series about these very issues. Thanks. Talk to you later. Bye.